sounds strange if you have to do that, right? It sounds quite strange to do that. So we are not going to do it. And there are, of course, irregular adjectives like good or bad, and you just have to change the spelling completely. So good becomes better, and superlative becomes best. And bad becomes worse than, and superlative becomes the worst. Why does it do that? Well, it's kind of complicated. You don't really need to know the reason why, but it's just because English has changed a lot in many, many centuries, and English has many influences from other languages. So, yeah, in the way that Korean was influenced by Chinese and also by some other languages nearby, English was a kind of originally a language that's kind of related to German. And then we got influenced by French, and we got influenced by some like a Norwegian languages and so on, and by Greek and Latin. And so it's a little bit complicated. So sometimes we'll follow the rules of Latin, and sometimes we'll follow the rules of English like German. And there's not really a reason why we do it. It's just English's history. And unlike languages like Korean or languages like French, we don't really have, we never fix it, okay? In Korean language, you fixed it and made it sound more correct. But in English, we never did it. We just kept it like that, and we just make students study harder to learn to understand how to spell. That's an unfortunate part of English, and that's what makes it one of the most difficult languages to learn, especially for Korean people, I think, and for Japanese people and Chinese people have a pretty difficult time because some parts of it doesn't really make sense. You just have to, well, you have to memorize it, right? Okay, well, there's your little history lesson there. I just wanted to let you know that there is a reason for it, but it's not important. Okay, so you look at this. So who are they? You know exactly who both of those players are. So you can say shorter, shortest, taller, tallest, faster, fastest, slower, slowest, more talented, most talented, better, best, more handsome, most handsome, or handsomer, handsomest, uglier, ugliest, more selfish, most selfish. Never heard anybody say selfisher or selfishest. Never heard that in my life, but people are always changing, like language is changing every day. Okay, so again here, you can make your own sentences here. Shorter, shortest, taller, tallest, more popular, most popular, older, oldest, younger, youngest, more talented, most talented. Again, we got 3 syllables there, so we're going to say more or most. Better and best, more beautiful and most beautiful, more glamorous, most glamorous. And glamorous in English has a little bit different meaning than it does in Korean. It doesn't necessarily have to do about body shape in English. It's more about style a bit. So in any case, in glamorous is of course glamorous, 3 syllables, glamorous, and therefore gets more or most when we put it into comparative and superlative form. So again, we're going over this a lot, so you're probably going to need to know it on the test. So here we've got Counter-Strike or Sudden Attack or some various shooter game which is so popular in Korea. And the other side we have a classic, well, this classic is even older than me. This is my mom's generation computer game, PC game. Actually, it's an arcade game that they used to play at the what we call in English arcade. I think you guys call it Uryokshil in Korean, right? Game Center. It's called Pac-Man. Pac-Man. In Japan, it was called Pokemon. But you cannot in America name a game character Pokemon because it sounds too much in English like an English yoke, an English bad word. Did you know that? So in America, this game was called Pac-Man. Pac-Man. Here's a little bit of a game history for you and language history for you. So we've got newer and newest, older and oldest, more popular and most popular. What's more popular, Pac-Man or Counter-Strike Sudden Attack? Probably more people know Pac-Man, I think. Because my mom doesn't know Sudden Attack or Counter-Strike, but she knows Pac-Man. More boring, most boring, better, best, worse, worst, more violent, most violent. So violent like killing, right? Obviously Counter-Strike is much, much more violent, and more addictive, most addictive. Like you guys say holic, right? Addictive. Which one is more addictive? Well, you can definitely play Sudden Attack for many hours, I'm sure, right? Okay. Reminder, the quiz will be the week of May 18th through the 22nd. Reminder, comparatives and superlatives will definitely be on there because we've taken so long to study those. You can be sure that I will not forget to put them on there in some form. And if I somehow don't put them on there, well, they will definitely be on the final test. Okay, so again, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a look at the English in Common book. So if you don't have your English in Common book out now, please go in the other room, go to your bookshelf and get it, or download your PDF or your pirate copy if you have one. In fact, I can't find a pirate copy of this book, unfortunately. It would be pretty useful because I just have the teacher's book. I don't have the student book. So if somebody finds a pirate copy, please let me know. I would really like to have it. So we're going to look at the vocabulary on page 40, some of the vocabulary. And of course, if we're going over the vocabulary, it probably can be on the test. So how long do you think you could survive in the wilderness? How long do you think you could survive in the wilderness? So what is wilderness? You can take a minute, look at your book, look it up in the dictionary, but wilderness is another word for nature, the forests, the mountains, the lakes, the rivers, the deserts, is the wilderness, the wild place. 2. What survival skills do you have? Skills. And skills is, of course, another word for abilities. Could you build a shelter in the forest? Well, what is a shelter? A shelter is a place to sleep or a place to live. You may hear in English sometimes the word homeless shelter. Homeless shelter is a place where people donate money so that homeless people can have somewhere to eat and sleep and do their normal business that homeless people have to do just like the rest of us. Number 4, do you usually push yourself in difficult situations? So what is the word to push yourself? I know during the online semester, many people have to push themselves. It's kind of difficult. So to push yourself is to try very hard. Even though it's very hard, you don't give up. How do you cope with new situations well, like moving to a new city or starting a new school? And cope is another word for deal with. Well, that's not a very good explanation, right? Because cope with and deal with are both kind of English idioms to describe the same situation, but they're both about as difficult as the other. So to deal with or cope with means to overcome, right? To get through. Okay, let's look at page 41 in part 7. Do part 4 in the active grammar for yourself, right? Do part 4 in the active grammar for yourself right now. We've already talked a lot about the comparative and superlative, so I don't think we need to go over part 4 in the active grammar right now, right? I don't think that's necessary. I'm not going to bore you guys to death with comparative and superlative. You probably already get it, right? You already get it. But let's take a look at part 7 there. So Everest high mountain in the world. Everest high mountain in the world. So unscramble those words and let's see if you can make a new sentence. It should be Everest is the highest mountain in the world. Notice they put the definitive article before highest because superlative is superlative and there's usually only one of them. What good department store in New York City? What is the best department store in New York City? Of course, good is an irregular one. It needs to go into become best. This wet day of the year so far. Well, we've got wet. It's a single syllable adjective, but it has a vowel E and then a consonant T. So we have a special rule for that, right? What is it? This is the wettest day of the year so far. So we have to double the consonant. This boring movie I have ever seen. Okay, boring is a double syllable here. It's going to have to be this is the most boring movie I've ever seen. So again, we put the definitive article the, then most, and then the adjective doesn't change its form at all. So this is the most boring movie that I have ever seen. And we've got one more. Soccer, popular sport in Brazil. Soccer is the most popular sport in Brazil. Soccer is the most popular sport in Brazil. Again, we've got another one with 3 syllables. We put most in front of it because it's a superlative, and then we put the definitive article the because it's unique. And in this one, we probably have to write the in front of most, okay? And as you can see, they're all stressed in slightly different ways. Okay, we're going to look at page 42. It's a little reading section about looking at England. Looking at England. So if we are looking at England, what can we say about England? This is about something we call stereotypes. Stereotypes. Do you know what a stereotype is? Well, a stereotype is something along the lines of something that we say about people that might not be true. This is something I like to do. I wish we had the class because I like to get in conversation groups and talk about stereotypes. We might talk about those a little bit in our Zoom class if we can, because they can be pretty fun, I think. I think they're really fun, actually, if we can not be sensitive about it. But it's interesting to think about stereotypes and where they come from and why we think them when they're not really always true. So let's look. I'm going to read Looking at England. Just please follow along and circle the topics in the box that are mentioned in part B. So being polite, English food, the weather, soccer, libraries, drinking tea, and driving habits. So there are ideas about England and the English that are just not true. England does not stop for afternoon tea every day, while the English do drink a lot of liquid, hot with milk. And although the weather is very changeable, easy to change. It doesn't rain all the time. Also, there's a lot of good food in England. No, really. In the major cities, you'll find the cuisine of almost every nationality. Indian food is a particular favorite of the English. To find classic English food, try eating in a traditional pub. The most famous English politeness is everywhere. The English use please, thank you, and sorry more than most other nationalities. For example, if you step on someone's foot, they'll probably say sorry to you. If you make a complaint, it's also common to begin with sorry, as in I'm sorry, but this soup is cold. You may think it strange on the London Underground that people don't talk to each other, even when crowded together in the rush hour. Silence is normal, as people read their books or newspapers. That doesn't mean English people are unfriendly. It just means that you might have to get to know them first. Okay? They point out in the book there's a British English word there, underground, and an American English word, subway. So let's take a look at the true and false to see how well you listened. I like to put true and false on the test. So mark the statement true or false. The English don't like their tea to be hot. Well, that of course is false, right? The British English really like hot tea. Iced tea is like a very American thing, I think, actually. I'm not sure why Americans like iced tea, but it's a very American thing. You get a lot of different weather types in England. That is true. There are a lot of different types of weather in England. It's not just rainy like you think. And England is, I think it's a country, it's a bit bigger than England, so you have many different regions. I mean, it's a bit bigger than Korea, so you have many different regions with different kinds of weather. Indian food is very popular in England. That's true, and in fact, I think that Indian food it's become really British food. A lot of like how 탕수육 and jjajangmyeon is really more Korean than it is Chinese now, right? You can find typical English food in top restaurants. Well, that is, of course, what? False. You can find it in pubs, although some fancy restaurants might sell it. It's pub food, right? Kind of like Koreans' anju. The English often use sorry to begin a complaint. Well, that is also true. Sorry, the soup is cold. I'm sorry, but I haven't gotten my pizza yet. So it's a kind of polite way. And the English like to talk to strangers in the underground, and it says that they don't, right? It says that they don't, but I think in this one, they're not really different than Koreans, and I think maybe English talk a little bit more than Korean people do to people in the subway. My experience. Okay, let's look at page 43, the active grammar box. We're doing a lot of grammar today. I'm sorry about that, but I wanted to talk about some the indirect questions, ways of asking questions. You guys are already pretty advanced, so you know how to ask questions, but we want to get some practice using indirect sort of questions. We have direct questions and indirect. In indirect questions, in English, we can be more polite by asking politely indirectly something. So it says, what happens to verbs in direct questions? And how do you make direct yes/no questions indirect? Well, indirect questions with be, we use the question word plus the subject plus what? Do you know? We use indirect questions with main verbs, the question word plus something and plus something else. What do we do? Well, if you look there, you can see different ways to form it. So how far is the station becomes, do you know how far the station is? So we put the be verb at the end of the sentence and put do you know at the front. Where can I get a taxi? Could you tell me where I, subject, can get a taxi? What time's the train arrive is direct question. Do you know what time the train arrives? Is the museum open becomes do you know if the museum is open? So on the quiz or test, I'll have a direct question. I want you to make it indirect using a specific phrase. So in the bottom there, part 6 on page 43, how much is that? Could you tell me? So what could we say here? We're paying attention to our rules. Could you tell me how much that is? Could you tell me is just a more polite way to ask the question. You're asking like a permission. Where can I get an application form? Do you know? Do you know where I can get an application form? Do you have any postage stamps? Do you know? Do you know if you have any postage stamps? How far is it to the library? Do you know how far it is to the library? Is there a post office near here? Could you tell me? Could you tell me if there's a post office near here? So quiz questions or test questions will look very similar to this. What time is it? Do you know? That one's easy, right? Do you know what time it is? That should have been number 1, I think. Okay, so we'll just go over these really, really quickly. I don't want to keep you guys too long here. Direct and indirect questions. Direct questions are the normal questions that we ask friends, family members, and people who we know well. Where's the bathroom? Indirect questions. So these are a little more formal and more polite. You might ask them to strangers, a person we don't know, or in a professional situation. It's a little bit different. So could you tell me where the bathroom is? This is very useful when you're traveling abroad, I think. Phrases for indirect questions. Could you tell me? Do you know? I was wondering. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea where the post office is? Do you have any idea what time this place opens? I'd like to know. Would it be possible? This one would be like a little bit if you wanted to ask like some requests. So you're at a hotel and you need more towels, and you might say, would it be possible if I could get more towels? Would it be possible I could get more towels? Okay, I think this one is very important to know to make a request. Is there any chance I could get more towels? Examples. Direct. Where is Garusu Street? Could you tell me where Garusu Street is? In indirect questions with is, are, and the verb is comes after the subject, in this case, Garusu Street. Direct. What time does the bank open? Indirect. Do you know what time the bank opens? In indirect questions, we don't use the auxiliary verbs do, does, did. There's people lining up to wait for the bank, right? Why did you move to Busan? Indirect. I was wondering why you moved to Busan. Again, there's no auxiliary verb did in a direct question. How much does the iPhone 11 cost? Very expensive, right? I'd like to know how much the iPhone 11 costs. This might be good, yeah, when you're in the store. I'd like to know how much the iPhone 11 costs. Could you tell me, somebody asks you, do you need help? And you'd say, yeah, I'd like to know how much the iPhone 11 costs. To form the indirect question, remove does and change cost to costs. Can you finish the project by tomorrow? Indirect. Would it be possible for you to finish the project by tomorrow? This is like a nice way of saying things. I think it's not like pushy. It doesn't give pressure to the other person, especially if you're in a position of authority. For direct questions with can, we can use the phrase, would it be possible to make it indirect? If the indirect question is a yes or no question, then the indirect question will have if. If it has yes or no, the indirect version will have if. So, does Tom like Italian food? Indirect. Do you know if Tom likes Italian food? Very good quiz and test question there. Very good quiz and test question. Are your parents joining us for dinner? Indirect. Could you tell me if your parents are joining us for dinner? So rewrite these sentences without changing the meaning. You take a minute, do this by yourself. We may talk about it in Zoom class if we have time. Don't change the meaning, but rewrite them without changing the meaning in direct questions. Take a minute, write those down, pause. Okay. The answers. Could you tell me where the nearest bank is? Do you know why that little baby is crying? Do you know if there's any water here? Could you tell me if he's coming tomorrow? Do you know how many cars she has? Do you know if they like swimming? Could you tell me what she wants? So Zoom classes, guys, we're not going to have another Zoom till the week of May 25th to 29th. I have to teach the freshmen on campus. The only students who are different is Monday class from last week. You guys did not get a chance to have Zoom last week. And students who had Children's Day on Tuesday, we're going to try to do a Zoom class this week. But everybody else, Wednesday and Thursday class, we're not going to have any other Zooms until the week of May 25th to 29th. If you need to talk to me, we can set up a special little Zoom meeting or something. That's fine. I'm okay. I like to do it. Finding most students don't come and don't want to talk, but I know it's tough. Students who have a Zoom, I am teaching the freshmen in campus, and sometimes after the class I have to run very fast back to my apartment because NAMSL doesn't have good Wi-Fi. So if I'm late, please wait for me 20 minutes and I'll come. Again, I have freshman classes and sometimes they finish right before your Zoom, okay? So please wait for me. And sometimes I have technical problems. Not usually, but when I do have technical problems, I only have them right before class. Okay, and don't forget the quiz week of May 18th to 22nd. Have any questions, please send me an email. I try to get back to everybody. This semester I get a lot of emails, so I try to make sure I get to everybody. Sometimes I just write very briefly. Please know that if I forget you, it's not personal. I'm trying to get every email and I'm trying to make sure everything is organized, but it's a difficult semester. I really appreciate you guys trying very hard, especially students who send me emails and students who come to Zoom class and students who seem to be doing everything right. I'm sorry we can't have an awesome conversation class. It makes me sad, but you're doing the best you can with our situation. So thank you. Everybody have a good week. See you in Zoom. Good luck. Bye-bye.